Hey there YouTube, this is Mrlubufu, and I'm here with kind of a different kind of video than I've been recording of late. It seems that an older video I recorded over 2 years ago is now getting a lot of views, and by a lot I mean it's surprising how fast it's rising. And that one was a video I spent a long time writing a script for called 10 Things to Make You a Better Magic Player. So in this video, I'm here with the sequel, 10 Things You Can Do to Be a Better Deck Builder. Someone requested it and I thought it was a fantastic idea, and so I'm going to go ahead and give you guys 10 things you can do to be a better deck builder. Now I know this video is not going to be short. I wrote a 1,000 word script for it, so it's going to be a little bit on the lengthy side. But I think that these tips are great whether you're looking to improve your deck building, whether it be for standard, modern, legacy, EDH, draft, sealed, you name it. So I'm excited to record it. So, number 1, Netdecking versus brewing. So first things first, is Netdecking versus brewing. I think that Netdecking kind of has this negative stereotype to it, and brewing has this like positive stereotype. But I think one of the key things you have to understand if you want to be a better deck builder moving forward is knowing that both Netdecking and brewing are not mutually exclusive. If you use each to adapt and grow, you can make a deck go from, decent at F&M tournaments to tournament winning lists. Each one offers its own strengths. Like Netdecking allows you to see refined lists that show you the pillars of the formats and some of the top interactions, and brewing allows for unpredictability and the option to explore new spaces with different cards and different interactions. Knowing what you can grab from each of these, and this just comes from, looking online and saying, Desecration Demon seems to be rising in popularity. How can I beat that? Knowing how to interact with both Netdecking and brewing helps make you a better deck builder. Same sort of thing goes with if you watch a lot of draft videos or sealed content, right? Knowing when you want to try something new or not is relevant. Number 2, mana bases are key. So next we have the understanding that mana is super critical. This is kind of one of the funny things that people talk. Like, it takes a little bit for people to learn that being able to cast your spells on time is so relevant, and mana bases just have so many fundamental questions you need to ask yourself. How much land do you need to draw for the deck to operate? What colors are necessary on turn 1, turn 2, so on? What colors do you want to, or do you want to hit your land drops at each time? How do you want to compensate for tapped lands? How do you compensate for if you want to run a 3-color mana base? Asking all of these questions are really fundamental to knowing how to design your mana base. I know for me personally, I'm kind of I'm an engineer by trade, and I'm kind of a nerd, and so if you look back in my archives, I've recorded videos breaking down mathematics of mana bases, and I'll be doing a separate video on hypogeometric distributions. If you're curious, you can go ahead and look that up, but there's a lot of interesting math behind it that can help guide you with these sort of decisions. Number 3, curving out. So, being able to understand your curve or what you want to be doing or maximizing every turn is so important. I know this ties a lot in with the prior point, because knowing when you can cast your spells and how you cast your spells are two, very intertwined things. But the focus is on the rest of the deck. Instead of focusing on the mana base, let's focus on the spells now. Focusing knowing what spells you have, how you want to cast them, when you want to cast them. It seems intuitive, but I mean it is intuitive knowing that like building an aggro deck versus building a control deck are very different. But helping realize what you kind of want to be doing at every specific turn helps structure your plan as you build and playtest the deck and learn from it. This is so important with draft too, because so many times you can just win a match by going 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and the opponents just kept too far back. It was so important in mostly non-Theros, because Theros, like triple Theros itself, was build a giant guy, kill you. But even still in that format, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop can just beat somebody. So understanding what you want to be doing is really important. Number 4, the fundamental turn. This one kind of functionally is more for for constructed decks, but this is what I like to call the fundamental turn. So for different decks, it's like for combo decks, for example, it's the turn where you win the game. For the control deck, it might be, when you've stabilized, when you've turned the shift away from the other deck, keeping you down to you having a definitive advantage and leading down a path to victory. Aggro, it's also, I think, the turn that they kill them. But knowing what your key cards you want to be casting can help guide the discussion of what series of plays or what guides you to the fundamental turn for your deck. Knowing what mana is there to support it, knowing which cards are the best for it, and these help give you a sort of skeleton for when you build a deck. Number 5, every percentage point matters. Now, as I said, I'm an engineer. I like my mathy statistics, so it's kind of leaning on that. But when it comes to deck building, you have so many design and card choices. I mean, you've got entire pools of cards in front of you, and every decision you make either improves or detriments your chance of winning, and it's like your percentage of winning. You'll hear this a lot when you hear some of the top players talk about other top players. This guy this change can add 0.05% chance of winning, but that's 0.05% chance of them winning every single time. And knowing that every point matters, every fraction of a point, it's just another chance for you to win. And this leads to kind of one of my most favorite discussions. Do you play 41 cards in your limited deck? Do you play 61 cards in your standard deck? Functionally, you have a lesser chance to draw any specific card, but maybe it improves it. Maybe it does. I'll give you a hint. It normally lessens your percentage, not by much, mind you, but it takes away from it. Knowing how much mana you're gonna be running, that changes your percentage of winning. Trying to find the key number of lands to play is non-trivial. Knowing your sideboard options, how can you build your sideboard, and we'll cover this later. What sort of sideboard choices can you make to up your percentage to win in certain matchups? And then, of course, main board card choices. Sure, you can shove 4 Blood Baron of Viscopa in a black-white deck, but against some of the decks that play like Polukranos and the like, it's not that good. So maybe you want to include Obsidian instead, but how does that support your mana? Like, there are all these very, very fine things, and there's no easy way to know what improves or takes away from your chance of winning. There really isn't. You can play test and get an idea of it, but sometimes you just gotta go with your gut. I personally have been known to make last second changes to decks. Sometimes they've been for better. Sometimes, most of the time, they've been for worse. But I make every choice in the hope that it improves the matchup in some ways. The first time I finished in the top 8 of a PTQ, I heard that there was a lot of red-green going around. And this was at the time where Strangleroot Geist, Huntmaster of the Fells, a lot of very aggressive creatures were getting cast with protection from Day of Judgment. So I decided to make a last-second change to remove 2 Day of Judgments from my control deck and put in 2 Terminus. Now, that doesn't, that can change what happens, but I miracled, I think it was like 6 Terminus over the course of the day, and each one was at an incredibly critical point. It was a small percentage point that it would improve, but it built up over the course of the 12-round tournament and won me some games. Number 6, zero-sum game. Now this is kind of a new topic. If you haven't heard what a zero-sum game, in game theory, by the way, I'm doing my my research in game theory. So, a zero-sum game is a mathematical representation of a situation where one person's gain is another person's loss, and each gain is equally appropriated to loss. So, the cliched example is if you're divvying up pieces of a pie, if one person gets a larger piece of pie, it reduces the amount of pie available for everyone else by the same amount that person had. So in Magic, this comes up in a lot of different ways. A lot more happens in play than it does in actual deck building. Like, oh, I lightning bolt you, you die, I win. It's kind of like a very simplistic example, I know, but everything that's good for you is worse or is equally as bad for your. Everything that's good for you is bad for your opponent, and everything that's good for them is bad for you. When it comes to deck building, this kind of comes up with card choices. Some cards may prove themselves better than others, and choosing one card can be better in the same way another one can prove detrimental. And it's not necessarily equal, but you're basically saying, if I can improve my chances of winning, I am lessening my opponent. And that's the key thing that I'm trying to get from this topic, or from this subject here, is you want to help your chances to win. It seems really simple, and it seems like, oh, should be something I should be able to do. But knowing that you not only want to help yourself, but you also just are detrimenting your opponent, and figuring out what cards are the best to do so comes from just practice and going through it. Number 7, know your environment. So one of the fundamentals to determine if a certain card or deck is well positioned is based on the environment, otherwise known as the metagame or the meta, if you haven't heard those phrases before. Even some of the most powerful cards needed time before they got to shine. Take, for example, Jace the Mind Sculptor, the epitome of insanely good card. It took time for it to see play because Jace was not exactly that good against Bloodbraid Elf. Jund was a deck at the time that was very good. You'd cast Bloodbraid Elf and you could cascade into Blightning, and that was very good. And Jace was not able to keep up. However, once Bloodbraid Elf and those cards from Alara rotated out, Jace became a cornerstone of the top deck, I would argue, in the past 10 years, Caw-Blade. So much so, he ended up getting banned in Standard. So, you might have a brilliant deck idea, but it might not be the right time for it. Being able to identify not only what the top decks are, or what the best deck is, but also knowing how to beat them, and whether or not your brew, if you are brewing, is, if it's if the time is right. Sometimes you don't have a choice because you just have to play it in a tournament or so on, but it gives you an idea. Number 8, sideboards. So, over the course of any given tournament, you are more likely to play more sideboarded games than your main board, because even if you go 2-0, you'll play exactly the same amount if you win 2-0 every single time. But if you ever go to a game 3, you're already playing more sideboard games. So sideboarding is important. Like, you have very few precious slots to dedicate to improve your matchups and maximize your chance to win. Some tips I've thought of when you're building a sideboard. Know what you're taking out for some standard matchups to give idea of how many slots you can dedicate. If you know that you have 8 bad cards in your main deck against a certain deck, don't put 15 cards in your sideboard to beat that same matchup, because you might be cutting out other cards that are just fine in the matchup. And you're fundamentally changing your deck. You should try not to make their cards good. So, don't sideboard to make their worst cards that they keep in strong. For example, if you're playing a very creature light deck, but they have too much creature removal, don't substitute in creatures to make their creature removal good. Oftentimes, currently in Standard, you see Esper and blue-white control decks bringing in creatures because people take out their creature removal against them. It's the same sort of next leveling you see going on here. Build your sideboard according to your metagame. This is so important. For example, if you know, like in Modern, everyone at your local store plays red aggro decks, or like 80% of the field plays red aggro decks, being able to allocate some slots for it, may not prove the same as if you're playing in a Grand Prix for Modern, but being able to build your sideboard appropriately can help increase your percentage of winning and increase your chance to win. You also have to know you cannot prepare for everything. Fundamentally, you have 15 slots. That's it. So you have to maximize your gain where you can. If you're already favored in a matchup, maybe you don't need to allocate so many slots as you are in another one where it's 50-50. Try to get the most out of what you can with the limited space you have. Right now in Standard, a lot of people are watching, or like if you're familiar with the metagame, mono black is a pretty dominant deck. Why is that? Well, the main board itself is pretty solid. You can win. You give a decent matchup against most of the field. But what makes mono black incredibly strong is its sideboard. You can sideboard and give your deck an advantage over basically any deck post sideboard. And that's where mono black gets a lot of its power and resiliency. If you watch any coverage, keep your eye out. See how powerful the sideboard is and how it can win games. Number 9, keep an open mind. I am so bad at this myself. Those of you that hear my set reviews know I'm very disappointed by a lot of cards. But it is really hard to tell when a new card or a new strategy will be powerful or not. Birthing Pod, for example, was a card that was deemed a bulk rare for months before people began utilizing it in Standard. It was a deck in Standard. Slight shifts in the metagame change what might be good at any given time, and being able to keep an open mind is critical to being able to see what options are available, both card-wise and strategy-wise. If you immediately shrug off anything, you'll never be able to explore all of the options available. So open your mind, young Padawan. For other formats, you can always explore new space by just thinking about synergies and strategies that new cards offer. There's someone at my local game store who's very good at this, and his decks are some of the most innovative I've ever seen. And he knows how to keep an open mind and how to see cards and how they work. Number 10, try, fail, succeed, repeat. And lastly, this is the most, if you're going to take anything from this video, try, fail, succeed, repeat. It should more accurately be try, fail, 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 succeed, repeat. You just have to go for it. You have to try. In the immortal words of Winston Churchill, success goes of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. For every great choice, you might make 10 terrible ones. But no, every single deck was just an idea once. Cobblade was once just an idea that people tested. Same with Splinter Twin. You just have to go for it. Bad decks can become great or just stay bad. And there's so many variables that you can tweak and try and test. Nobody knows until you try. So you gotta not get discouraged, plow forward, and maybe you become, or maybe you build something incredible. I would like to, at this point, say some thanks to people, or to places that I got a lot of this inspiration. Thanks to Channel Fireball, articles, Star City Games articles, CCG Play articles, and Next Level Deck Building. All of these were fundamental in making this video, and I do cite my sources. Thank you guys all for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and just if you want to be a better deck builder, just go for it. Have faith in yourselves. Thank you guys all for watching.